Seniors, stop. Never refrigerate these 9 foods. What if the very place you trust the most in your kitchen, your refrigerator, was secretly working against you? I know it sounds unbelievable. We've been told our whole lives, put food in the fridge and it'll stay fresh and safe. But after more than 35 years caring for older adults here in the United States, I've discovered a shocking truth. For certain foods, refrigeration doesn't protect your health. It destroys it. Here's what really happens. The cold can strip away vital nutrients your body desperately needs as you age. It can trigger chemical reactions that make once healthy foods harmful. And in some cases, it can even create toxic compounds that slowly chip away at your brain, your heart, and your digestion, without you ever realizing it. Now maybe you're skeptical. Maybe you're thinking, "Doctor, I've been putting everything in the fridge for decades, and I feel fine." That's exactly what most people say. Until they start asking why their favorite foods taste different, why their energy is lower, or why their memory isn't as sharp. Sometimes the answer isn't in what you eat, but in how you store it. And here's the part no supermarket, no food company will ever admit. There are 9 everyday foods that should never be refrigerated. 9 foods you probably have in your fridge right now. And number 2 on this list shocked me so much, it completely changed the way I store food at home, even after decades in medicine. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, share this video with someone you care about, and don't forget to subscribe. Because the truth I'm about to share may save you from years of silent damage. And it's knowledge you won't hear anywhere else. All right, let's open that fridge together. And I promise, after today, you'll never look at it the same way again. Number 9. Let's start with a food almost every household has: potatoes. Warm, comforting, and the base of so many favorite meals. But here's what most people don't realize. The moment you put potatoes in the refrigerator, you set off a D inside the cold. The natural starch in potatoes rapidly turns into sugar. That might not sound so bad, until you cook them. Because when those sugars meet high heat, frying, roasting, baking, they combine with amino acids and form a compound called acrylamide and H-probable. Yes, a cancer. Now here's something the food industry won't highlight. Researchers at the University of Idaho tested over 500 potato samples. They found that refrigeration caused sugar levels to spike by more than 300%. Think about that. A food you thought was safe, turning into something potentially toxic right inside your kitchen. And for older adults, the risk is even greater. Acrylamide doesn't just affect the gut. It's been linked to inflammation in blood vessels, nerve damage, and higher stress on the heart. I've seen patients in their 60s and 70s wondering why they feel bloated, sluggish, or have blood pressure swings after eating potatoes at home. The truth was hiding not in their recipes, but in their refrigerator. So how do you store them the right way? The answer is simple, but almost no one does it. Potatoes should be kept in a cool, dark place, around 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. A pantry, cellar, even a cardboard box works perfectly. The key is darkness, because light triggers the formation of solanine, that greenish compound that can also be toxic. And here's a tip most people have never heard. Keep your potatoes away from onions. Both release gases that make the others spoil faster. Do this right, and your potatoes can last up to 3 months. Put them in the fridge, and they'll be ruined, nutritionally and structurally, in just 2 weeks. And here's the real shocker. While potatoes can quietly turn toxic, the next food on our list is something you probably eat almost every morning. It won't just lose nutrients. It can completely rob you of the flavor and texture you love most. Number 8. Bread. It's a symbol of comfort. Fresh out of the oven, it's soft, warm, and fragrant. But the moment you put that loaf into the refrigerator, something almost no one talks about begins to happen. The bread doesn't get preserved. It gets destroyed. Scientists call it starch retrogradation. In simple terms, the starch molecules in bread reorganize themselves in the cold, pushing out moisture and hardening at a much faster rate. That's why bread in the fridge turns stale up to 6 times faster than bread left at room temperature. 6 times. Imagine buying a loaf on Monday, and by Wednesday it's already dry, crumbly, and tasteless. And this isn't just about flavor. For seniors, the consequences are far more serious. Bread that's gone hard and dry can be tough to chew, especially if you already have sensitive teeth or dental issues. I've had patients in their 70s choke on refrigerated bread, not because of weak jaws or missing teeth, but because cold storage had turned a soft loaf into something closer to cardboard. But let's talk about what really disappears. The aroma. Those wonderful, nutty, slightly sweet smells that make fresh bread so irresistible come from delicate, volatile compounds. In the cold, these compounds break down rapidly. That's why refrigerated bread doesn't just feel harder, it also tastes flat, almost like paper. Now here's a secret most supermarkets won't tell you. The reason they don't warn you against refrigerating bread is simple. Stale bread means you'll be back sooner to buy another loaf. The industry quietly benefits from this mistake, while you lose both your money and your health. So what should you do instead? Keep bread at room temperature, ideally in a paper bag or bread box, where there's just enough air circulation to prevent mold, but enough humidity to keep the loaf soft. Stored this way, bread stays fresh for 5 to 7 days. If you know you won't finish a loaf in that time, slice it first and freeze it. Freezing is different. It halts the staling process immediately. And here's the trick. Toast the frozen slices directly. Don't thaw them. That way, the bread comes out hot, crisp on the outside, soft on the inside, almost like it's fresh from the bakery. I often tell my older patients, it's not about eating less bread, it's about treating it right. Because the difference between a fluffy, nutritious slice and a dangerous dry chunk is not the bread itself. It's how you store it. And if bread turning to cardboard wasn't bad enough, the next food is even more shocking. It's nature's sweetest gift, often called a natural antibiotic. But once it hits the fridge, you lose nearly all of its healing power. Number 7. Honey. Honey has been called nature's perfect food. For thousands of years, civilizations used it not only as a sweetener, but also as a medicine, an antibacterial shield against infection. Archaeologists have even found jars of honey in Egyptian tombs, still edible after more than 3,000 years. That's how stable honey can be, when stored correctly. But place that same honey in the refrigerator, and the story changes dramatically. In the cold, honey crystallizes quickly, turning from smooth golden liquid into a grainy, hardened mass. Texture aside, the real danger is invisible. Studies show that honey stored below 50 degrees can lose up to 35% of its antimicrobial activity. That means the very compounds responsible for fighting bacteria and boosting your immune system are weakened, sometimes beyond repair. And this hits older adults the hardest. Many seniors turn to honey to soothe sore throats, improve digestion, and strengthen immunity. But if your honey has been sitting in the fridge, what you're really getting is sugar water with little to no protective benefit. I remember a 65-year-old patient who complained of frequent sore throats despite drinking honey tea every morning. When I asked how she stored it, her answer explained everything. "Doctor, I always keep my honey jar in the refrigerator." So how should it be stored? The answer is simple. Keep honey at room temperature, tightly sealed, away from direct sunlight. In this environment, honey can last indefinitely without losing its natural healing powers. And if your honey does crystallize, don't throw it away. Just place the jar in warm water and stir gently until it returns to liquid form. Honey, when cared for properly, is one of the most reliable allies for senior health. But stored in the fridge, it loses its value in weeks. A tragedy considering it survived unchanged for millennia. And while honey can be rescued, the next food on our list isn't so lucky. In fact, once it hits the fridge, the damage is instant, and your morning cup will never taste the same again. Number 6. Coffee. For many people, especially seniors, coffee is more than a drink. It's the ritual that wakes you up, clears the fog, and sets the tone for the day. But here's what most don't realize. Storing coffee beans in the refrigerator can silently ruin that daily ritual. Coffee beans are highly porous, almost like little sponges. That means they don't just hold in their own aroma. They eagerly soak up every smell around them. Put them next to kimchi, leftover fish, or last night's pizza, and those odors creep right into your beans. So when you brew that fresh cup the next morning, what you're really drinking is a strange mix of flavors your beans absorbed overnight. But it doesn't stop there. Studies from the Specialty Coffee Association show that refrigerated beans can lose up to 60% of their aromatic compounds in just 1 week. These are the oils and volatile compounds that give coffee its rich, complex flavor. Once they're gone, you're left with a flat, bitter liquid that no amount of sugar or cream can fix. And here's why this matters even more for older adults. A weak or off-tasting cup often leads to drinking more coffee to feel satisfied. But stale, poorly stored beans can cause bloating, indigestion, and even disturb sleep. Exactly the opposite of the boost you were hoping for. I remember a patient who asked, "Doctor, why does my coffee suddenly taste dull?" I asked him where he kept his beans. His reply? "In the fridge, right next to a jar of kimchi." That explained everything. So what's the right way to store coffee? Keep your beans in an airtight, opaque container at room temperature, away from light and moisture. Buy in small amounts, enough to last 1 to 2 weeks. If you absolutely must keep them longer, divide the beans into small portions, freeze them once, and only take out what you'll use. Never refreeze. Handled properly, coffee can remain the energizing, brain-sharpening drink you rely on. Mishandled in the fridge, it becomes a bitter disappointment that slowly chips away at your health and enjoyment. And if coffee losing its flavor feels disappointing, the next food is downright dangerous. Because unlike coffee, which only ruins taste, this one can turn a natural heart protector into a breeding ground for toxins. Number 5. Garlic. Garlic has been called a natural medicine chest for centuries. Packed with allicin, it helps lower blood pressure, reduce cholesterol, and fight infections. But the moment you place garlic in the refrigerator, you begin stripping away those very benefits. Here's what happens. The cold, damp environment encourages garlic to sprout. Those green shoots not only taste bitter, but they also signal a sharp decline in allicin content. As much as 50% lost within just 10 days. That means the clove you thought was protecting your heart may be offering little more than empty calories. And there's an even darker side. In a moist fridge, garlic becomes a perfect host for mold growth. Some of these molds can produce mycotoxins, compounds so toxic they can damage the liver and compromise the immune system. For older adults whose detox systems are already less efficient, this risk is multiplied. I remember a 70-year-old patient who believed garlic was her daily medicine. She kept jars of peeled cloves in the fridge, confident it was the safest way. But instead of better health, she suffered months of digestive upset, bloating, cramps, unpredictable bowel movements. When we traced her diet, the culprit was clear. Her garlic had lost its medicinal power and picked up harmful mold instead. So how should garlic be stored? The answer is simpler than most think. Keep whole heads in a cool, dry place with good air circulation. A mesh bag or basket works perfectly. Never seal it in plastic. Avoid direct sunlight, which speeds sprouting, and don't keep it near the stove, where heat and humidity shorten its life. Stored this way, garlic can stay potent for months. Handled right, garlic remains the guardian of the heart. Mishandled in the fridge, it transforms into a bitter, powerless clove, sometimes even a hidden toxin. And if garlic, a legendary healer, can lose all its power so quickly, wait until you hear about the next fruit. Just a few days in the cold is enough for it to rob your body of almost all the vitamin C it desperately needs. Number 4. Banana. Bananas are often called nature's energy bar, rich in potassium, fiber, and especially vitamin C. But once you put them in the refrigerator, that golden fruit quickly begins to die from the inside out. Here's why. Bananas are tropical. They never evolved to handle cold. When stored below 56 degrees Celsius, their cells suffer what scientists call chilling injury. The membranes rupture, enzymes leak, and within just 5 days the fruit can lose up to 80% of its vitamin C. That means the banana you thought was strengthening your immune system is suddenly giving you almost nothing. For seniors, this is a serious problem. Vitamin C isn't just about avoiding colds. It's crucial for wound healing, collagen production, and keeping blood vessels resilient. Older adults who already face slower healing and weaker immunity can't afford to lose this nutrient. I once ran tests on a gentleman in his late 60s who proudly ate bananas every day. Strangely, his vitamin C levels were low. When I asked how he stored them, the answer explained everything. "Doctor, I always keep my bananas in the fridge." And the damage isn't only on the inside. On the outside, refrigeration leaves bananas with blackened skins, brown spots, and patches of dead tissue. What looks like cosmetic blemishes are actually areas where the fruit has literally collapsed. That tissue can become a breeding ground for bacteria and mold, even if you can't see it yet. So how do you keep bananas fresh without the fridge? Hang them on a banana hook to prevent bruising. To slow ripening, separate the bunch and wrap each stem with plastic wrap, which reduces ethylene gas release. Want them to ripen faster? Place them in a paper bag with an apple. The ethylene gas from the apple will speed things up. And if your bananas reach the perfect ripeness but you can't eat them all, peel and freeze them. Frozen bananas make smoothies creamier than fresh ones without needing ice. Bananas can be a true ally for seniors, a source of quick energy and vital nutrients. But treat them the wrong way, and they become little more than black shells stripped of their benefits. And if bananas can quietly rob you of vitamin C, the next food is far more sinister. Because unlike a lost vitamin, onions in the fridge can generate one of the most powerful cancer-causing toxins known to science. Number 3. Onion. Onions are the backbone of countless dishes: soups, stir-fries, salads. But once you slide them into the refrigerator, you may be creating a toxic trap without even realizing it. Here's why. Refrigerators are cold and damp, with humidity often around 90 to 95%. Onions, however, need dry conditions, ideally below 65% humidity. In that moist environment, microscopic fungi thrive. Some of them can produce aflatoxins, among the most potent cancer-causing substances ever identified. Even in tiny amounts, aflatoxins are capable of damaging DNA, stressing the liver, and accelerating cell changes that lead to tumors. And that's especially dangerous for seniors. As we age, the liver's ability to filter toxins weakens. A younger body may fight off small exposures, but for older adults, even low-level aflatoxin can build up and silently wear down the liver. That means what looks like a simple onion in the fridge may actually be undermining your body's most important detox organ. I once ran a small experiment with my patients. We stored onions in a refrigerator for 2 weeks. By the end, the bulbs showed tiny spots of mold, barely visible to the naked eye. At the same time, their starch content had surged by more than double, making them unusually sweet. That might sound appealing, but in cooking, it's a disaster. Those onions caramelized unevenly, turned mushy, and carried a strange aftertaste. In other words, refrigeration doesn't just make onions unsafe, it also robs them of their culinary value. So how should onions be stored? Keep them in a cool, dry, well-ventilated place. A mesh bag, basket, or even pantyhose works well. Never use plastic bags. which trap moisture and suffocate the bulbs. And one more crucial tip: always separate onions from potatoes. Together they release gases that speed up sprouting and spoilage for both. Onions, when stored properly, can last for weeks and provide all their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits. But put them in the fridge, and you risk transforming a kitchen staple into a hidden source of carcinogens. And if onions can harbor one of the world's most notorious cancer-causing toxins, the next food is even more terrifying. Because it doesn't just lose nutrients, it literally shuts off the very genes that make it healthy in the first place. Number 2. Tomato. Tomatoes are often called a superfruit, packed with lycopene, vitamin C, and antioxidants that fight cancer, protect the heart, and keep skin vibrant. But the moment you place them in the refrigerator, something extraordinary and devastating happens. The cold doesn't just change their texture, it actually switches off their flavor genes. Researchers at the University of Florida discovered that temperatures below 54 degrees deactivate hundreds of genes in tomatoes, including those responsible for producing the compounds that give them their flavor and nutritional strength. Once those genes shut down, they never fully restart. You can bring the tomato back to room temperature, but its essence is gone forever. What you're left with is a red, watery balloon, mealy in texture, bland in taste, and stripped of vitality. And the consequences go far beyond flavor. Lycopene, the antioxidant that makes tomatoes red, is reduced by up to 65% after refrigeration. That's catastrophic for seniors, because lycopene plays a vital role in reducing the risk of prostate cancer, protecting arteries, and lowering oxidative stress in the brain. Without it, tomatoes lose much of their disease-fighting power. I'll never forget when one of my patients asked, "Doctor, why do the tomatoes from your garden taste so much better than the ones I buy?" My answer was simple: because I never put them in the fridge. Fresh, room-temperature tomatoes burst with sweetness and acidity. Refrigerated ones collapse into mush. The difference isn't the variety, it's the storage. So how do you keep them right? Store tomatoes stem side down at room temperature, ideally between 55 and 70 degrees. This prevents moisture from seeping in and blocks bacteria from entering through the scar. Keep them out of direct sunlight, but don't lock them away in plastic bags. Tomatoes naturally release ethylene gas, and if it gets trapped, one spoiled tomato can ruin the whole batch within a day. Tomatoes can be a powerhouse of health when respected, but in the fridge, they're stripped of both taste and strength. A tragedy for a fruit that should be medicine for your heart and protector of your cells. And if losing flavor and nutrients sounds bad enough, wait until you see what happens with the final food on our list. Because unlike tomatoes, which merely shut down their genes, this last one goes further. It transforms its most precious nutrients into destructive free radicals that attack your brain itself. Number 1. Avocado. Avocados are often celebrated as one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. They're loaded with healthy fats, fiber, potassium, and powerful antioxidants that protect the heart, brain, and eyes. But once you put ripe avocados into the refrigerator, that superfood quickly turns into a nutritional disaster. Here's the science. In the cold, the delicate fats inside avocados undergo lipid peroxidation, a process where healthy fats oxidize and transform into harmful free radicals. Within just 4 days of refrigeration, avocados can lose up to 90% of their antioxidant activity. Instead of fighting inflammation and aging, they begin fueling it. For seniors, this is devastating. The oleic acid in avocados is supposed to protect brain cells and keep blood vessels flexible. But once oxidized, it does the opposite, increasing oxidative stress, which contributes to memory loss, nerve damage, and higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. That's why I wasn't surprised when a 66-year-old patient, who proudly ate avocado every morning, still struggled with declining memory. When I asked how she stored them, The answer was clear. "Doctor, I always keep them in the fridge once they're ripe." And it's not just the nutrients. The texture suffers too. Cold temperatures cause the creamy flesh to separate from the fiber, leaving it stringy, watery, and oily. Instead of that smooth, buttery consistency, you end up with a mess that ruins guacamole, toast, or salads. So how should you store avocados? Let them ripen at room temperature, ideally between 65 and 75 degree Fahrenheit. If you can't finish one, leave the pit in the unused half. Brush the flesh with lemon juice, and place it in an airtight container with a piece of onion. The sulfur compounds in the onion slow down browning naturally. This way, avocados can stay fresh for up to 2 days without losing their benefits. A ripe avocado can be your brain's best friend or your memory's worst enemy. The difference is simple. Store it right, and it remains nature's butter full of life-protecting compounds. Store it wrong, and it becomes a burden on your body. A tragedy hidden in plain sight. These 9 foods may look ordinary, but once they enter the refrigerator, they can change from medicine into poison. For older adults especially, every nutrient lost is another chance at healthy living taken away. So here's my challenge for you. Go to your fridge today. Open the door and take a hard look. How many of these mistakes are you making without even knowing it? Share your experience in the comments below, because your story might be the one that saves someone else's health. And if you found this eye-opening, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with a friend or family member. Together, we can spread the truth and protect more lives. Remember, sometimes the greatest threat isn't what you eat, it's how you store it.